July 25th, year of our Lord 2023, 6 p.m. Second item, an invocation given to us by Pastor, is this Adrienne Coleman? Adrienne, I am sorry, I apologize, Adrienne.
That's a Texas pronunciation.
Yes, ma'am. Of Highland Methodist Church, anyone willing us to join us in invocation can do so by standing up and join us. And then also will be led by Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge by Councilmember Cornell.
Yeah. For the record, I am also the pastor at Mackey Chapel United Methodist Church here in Odessa, so I have the unique pleasure of serving two communities in worship here in Odessa.
God bless you.
Will you pray with me? God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to come together as the people of our city. May your grace cover each aspect of this meeting. May this be a safe place for people to express their opinions and a place where ideas matter more than titles. May everyone be engaged and involved, and may all concerns be addressed. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Grant us peace in knowing we are pursuing your purpose for our lives and our communities. Renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of every human person. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident of your goodness and love. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. Council, before we move on to item 4, I'm going to ask the council to consider a motion and a second for suspending the rules on the city council agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Thompson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Cornell. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously 6-0. We're going to go ahead and move on to, as we suspended the rules, we're going to take things out of order. We're going to go on to the regular agenda, on to item 1. Consider formation. Are we going to do the donation first?
Oh, no, so we're gonna do, that's just something for y'all to look at. We're gonna need to do number 4 first, formation operations.
Okay, so we're going to move on to consider formation, operations, structure, organization, management, and naming of the sports complex. Our City Attorney Jones?
So, Mayor, this is something that I've talked to all of you, and Mr. Vasquez included, and perpetuity seems to be the word that keeps coming to mind. That all of you want this to live, to go on after your terms here are done. That's what I'm getting from all of you.
Correct.
That you want this to go on, the Sports Foundation to go on to be something forever. And that generations to come will be able to enjoy it. And as Mr. Bell says, I believe on one of his emails, you know, you plant a tree and you never get to enjoy the shade. It's the future generations that enjoy it. So that's what we're doing here.
Okay.
So my thinking is, of course, I've talked to all of y'all about this, 7 voting appointees. Each of you get 1 appointee, and they will get to vote. And then I'm thinking 3 of you should serve as ex officio members. And then always have the Director of Parks on there as well. That's what I would suggest. Now, that is not necessarily in the bylaws, but it's something that I want y'all to discuss tonight and come to a conclusion on.
Okay.
And of course, we're going to also talk about setting up the 501c3. Once we go through the the list and everything, we gotta still choose the name first, and then we're gonna choose directors, and then we've got appointing a registered agent. So there's a lot of things that we've got to discuss tonight.
Okay. All right, so before we wind up doing that, we're gonna go on to item 4.
Yes, we're doing item 4 right now, so,
So on item 4 is consider approving the escrow agreement with P-Bar Park Spell Ranch.
oh, no, sir, no, we're gonna do number 1 first and
So
foremost.
you want to go ahead in order?
Yeah, yes, sir, we're gonna go straight in order tonight.
Okay.
So, and that's what I'm saying. The way I've got this kind of set up so far is with the bylaws and articles of incorporation, it's very similar to the Parks Foundation, and that is a good starting point. What I would like for you to do is give me permission to have, of course, your 7 appointees, and then 3 ex officio from council, and then 1 ex officio, of course, being with the Parks Director.
Okay. 7 directors.
Now, each appointed by you.
Yep.
Each of you get 1, and that is something that comes automatic. The council doesn't have to approve it. So if Councilman Mata wants whoever's going to be on there.
And then 3 ex officios, and then Parks Director.
That's what I'd like to do.
So you need a motion and
Yes,
and a second.
so I can change the
Any
bylaws.
discussion before we wind up moving forward with the vote?
I think the only thing, Dan, that you and I talked about was making sure that the people appointed
Would follow y'all's
will
terms.
follow the council
Y'all's
members' terms.
terms,
So,
yes.
so people are always rotating off and rotating on,
Rotating
so
on.
there's always history. There's gotta
Right.
be history, there's gotta be
Yes.
Yes, sir.
legacies, so
Legacies and histories,
people know how things are supposed to run.
So what I'm looking for is a motion to accept the bylaws and the articles of incorporation with those exceptions. The 3 of y'all being ex officio, Parks Director ex officio, and those terms.
So the bylaws, and what was that?
And
one?
articles of
Article
incorporation. And then once we do this, then we're going to go on and name our board of directors.
Okay, so council, before us is a motion for the 7 directors, 3 ex officios, and also naming the Parks Director, City of Odessa, to be on the board, and also the, going forward of the formation of the bylaws and article of corporation for the nonprofit that is yet to be named.
Yep.
In this motion.
That's what we're doing.
Okay, so we have a motion. I have a motion by Councilmember Haney, second.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Mata. Any discussion? All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so that has given me an order to go out and put it all together, what you just told me. Now, Mayor, we're going to go on, if you will, to number 2.
Consider appointment of the Board of Directors for the Sports Complex. So do you want to go ahead?
So, Mayor, I was going to ask all of you, and of course, I'm going to go ahead and speak for Councilman Vasquez. He wants to nominate Bradley Marquez and Bradley is a former pro football and baseball player. I believe he owns Icon. He's a partner with Sean Rodriguez down there in downtown. And that is Councilman Vasquez's appointment. So, and again, the appointment is who he wants it to be. You don't get to say no, you don't get to say yay, it's his appointment. So Bradley Marquez is Councilman Vasquez's appointment. And so Mayor, now I'll turn it back over to you to handle it however you want, whoever.
We'll go ahead and start in order from my right. Councilmember Swanner.
I nominate Carrie Evans.
Kerry Evans, you got that for the record. Councilmember Mata.
Nominate Bob Thayer.
Councilmember Thompson.
Nominate Colin Sewell.
I will have Daniel Howard. Councilmember Cornell.
4th District, Jeff Stenberg.
Jeff Tamber. Councilmember Haney.
Teresa Vasquez.
Peter Vasquez. Okay.
Okay,
Do we need a form of a
I need
motion?
that in the form of a motion.
Have a motion to accept those that are named onto the.
So motion.
All those
directors.
names.
Have a motion by Councilmember Cornell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Thompson. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to move on to item 3. Consider accepting donation of, from P-Bar Parks Bell Ranch Limited, approximately 100 acres for the constructing and maintaining of a sports complex for the children's park. The resolution. City Attorney?
So, Mayor, what we have here, and I believe Mr. Withrow is back there in the back, and we have the deed, which is donating the 100 acres. And I think I sent y'all a couple things today, just some cleanup, I believe that Mr. Terry caught, that none of the rest of us caught, but I think Chris Terry caught it. And, but anyway, so we've cleaned that up and everything. And so I just need you to make a motion to accept it from the Bell family.
Council, any discussion before moving forward for a vote and a motion and a vote for item 3? If not, I will entertain a motion for the accepting donation from the P-Bar Parks Bell Ranch Limited, approximately 100 acres for the constructing and maintaining of a sports complex and a children's park.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mata, do I have a second by Councilmember Thompson. All in favor indicating by saying aye. Aye. All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Okay, now we're on item 4. Consider approving an escrow agreement with P-Bar Parks Bell Ranch Limited.
Mayor, did you want to have a picture with or was that necessary?
Are we gonna wind up doing 4 and then we'll do that? And do the
We
donation?
can,
We'll
but
do
we've
that?
also got to go back to the naming.
Okay. So, yes, what we wanna do. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. You ready to go?
Yeah,
You ready?
you can go ahead and do that. Yes, sir. Y'all go ahead and do that. And Mr. Bell?
If appropriate, I have a few comments and remarks I'd like to share as well. but,
That's why we're gonna do this.
Okay.
So. In all the counseling and everything, we wind up doing the legalities. When we came on council, there was a discussion and several meetings about this ongoing dream about a sports complex. So we wind up getting into a serious conversation. We went over and visited with Mr. Bell. I think the first day we had an 8-hour tutorial on the history of all the sections that the family owns. It was interesting. It was the best 8 hours I have spent in my life to understanding Ector County. And from that, you know, we had met with Colin and we had met with several community members over the course of the last 30 months. And we came up with the best plan. And the Bell stepped up and said, hey, we're gonna make a donation for the 100 acres to make this a reality. In perpetuity, we wanna be able to, this is for generations. Mr. Bell put it plainly, when you plant a tree, only those generations in the future are going to benefit from the shade. And so the thing is that they have a long-standing history of being contributors. There's a lot of people say that they're gonna do it, and then there's those that do it. So today, the Bell, we want to congratulate them, and we want to officially accept this donation on the side, as a city council, on your behalf. The Bells are making this donation to the citizens of the city of Odessa for the reality of this complex yet to be named. So let's give them a round of applause. And now the Bells would like to address the community on behalf. We want to give that.
All right, everyone. Everyone look at me, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Bell, go ahead.
Oh, here, sir.
I'll try to speak to everyone. I'll turn a little bit every once in a while, I hope. But I particularly want to speak to you all, and in here I'm going to say something about, in these prepared remarks, something about if you decide to accept this gift, and my challenge to you if you do, the challenge is the same. So I'm going to go ahead and read it as I've written it. Honorable Mayor, Odessa City Council, staff, gathered guests. My name is Larry Bell, and I am the president of Bell Legacy Partners, as well as a part owner and manager of Parks Bell Ranches. I come before you tonight to offer a gift of property to the citizens of Odessa and to Ector County. Before I do that, I would like to take a moment of personal privilege to introduce the members of the Parks Bell family who are here with me tonight. First of all, my wife, Ellen. My oldest son, Matthew, and his lovely wife, Ann. And just as importantly, and I can promise you, a significant part of this gift is my two grandsons, Parker Bell and Aaron Bell, back in the back. For those of you who've been out to Parks Bell North, you know that there's a main thoroughfare out there called Aaron Parker. Well, now you know Aaron and Parker. So. Not with us tonight is my son Brian and his wife Kara. They are just returning from a trip overseas, and so we're sorry they couldn't be with us tonight, but I think they are joining us over the internet, which, hi Brian, hi Kara, hi girls. But Brian and Kara, and then my two granddaughters. My granddaughters, Emily, Kate, and Conley Reed. And if you've been to Parks Bell North, you may have driven down Kate Reed Road, and now you know who Emily, Kate, and Conley Reed are. So it's a family affair out there, and we're grateful about that, and they are all participants in this gift. The history of the Parks Bell Ranch family in Odessa goes back more than 100 years. Ellen's grandfather, Roy Parks Sr., came to Odessa in 1918. He settled on a piece of land located between Odessa and Midland that had its headquarters near a watering station and a set of cattle pens on the Texas Pacific Railroad. Remnants of those pens are near the intersection of Faudree Road and Old Highway 80, just south of the Country Club. And our dear friend Larry Lee, who has developed a significant industrial park at that particular location, has been so gracious to tenderly and protectively, if you drive down Faudree and you get to the intersection, you look off to the right, you'll see two little gate posts and what have you. And that's the original headquarters and original drive into the Parks Bell Ranch, long before there was a Highway 80 or an I-20 or 191 or anything else that's out there today. Over time, Mr. Parks and his son acquired approximately 70 sections of land in that area located between Odessa and the airport. The Parks Ranch was wedged between three of Midland's historic ranches. Our neighbor include the Scarborough Ranch to the east and the Hurt Ratliff Ranch and the McKnight Ranch to the west. And over the 50 years, as the cities of Odessa city of Odessa and Midland have grown toward each other and the airport, approximately 6,000 acres of land has been annexed out of the Parks Bell Ranch, into the city of Odessa. That's a lot. And I've been there and blessed to be a part of almost all of it. And I've been joined in that effort by some great friends in here, and I mentioned Larry Lee earlier. He built a couple of miles of Faudree Road. He's been a part of the interchange where we're going to have an overpass in a few years once the highway department, it's on their list, now we get them to fund it, at Faudree Road and Highway 80 that we set aside and planned for 20 years ago, Larry. Remember? John Landgraf helped us with that. So we've been at work with all of that for a long, long time, and ultimately the plan is for Faudree Road to go from Highway 1787 on the south end all the way up to Highway 158 on the north end and connect and make that major new transition and connector between 1788 and Loop 338 for that major north-south connector between the two communities. We worked that out with the Highway Department and Ector County and the city of Odessa in 1980 before we even built Highway 191. As a part of that, the follow-up that I would mention to you is the Yukon Road connection. And that Yukon Road connection, which originally went from West Loop 338 to East Loop 338, our good friend, after we started Mission Dorado and after we built 2 miles of Faudree Road, our good friend Brian Henderson, who was county commissioner in that area, many years ago, late 80s, came to us and came to our friends at Ratliff Ranch and said, we want to build a new connector between 191 and Loop 338, and we're going to go up Faudree. Would you donate the right of way? And then it'll go down Yukon all the way to 338. And Buzz and his family agreed to donate that right of way. So that's how that part of Yukon Road got built almost 40 years ago, almost 35, I think. Now recently, the Highway Department has approved, funded, and started construction on an overpass at 191 and Yukon Road. The Bell family has built 2.5 miles of Yukon from Faudree to 191. And as you all may know, Midland County built 7 miles of county road all the way from 191 to the airport. So now in the near future, you'll be able to go from West Loop 338 all the way down Yukon across North Odessa, all the way across Hurt Ranch, all the way across the Bell Ranch, and all the way to the airport. And let me tell you, I've used it. I had to go a little bit of a detour to get there. It's a great road, and it's a time saver, and it's wonderful, and I think it'll make a huge difference in terms of safety and also opportunity for the city of Odessa and all the citizens, and including Andrews and Seminole and Hobbs, anybody to the north and west of that area, to be able to use that and not have to go to 338 and 191 and 191 and 1788, because we all know the congestion and all the issues that creates. So that in and of itself is another great opportunity. I'll mention in just a few moments why I bring that to your attention. Now to the business at hand. Ellen and I are here tonight, joined by our family, to honor 2 important family traditions that were taught to us by our parents and grandparents. First of all, to those who much is given, much is required. And the second part of that that's particularly important to us, and was a mantra of our daughter Amy, who passed away about 10 years ago and couldn't be with us tonight, but I promise you, she's here with us in spirit. And she's excited and enthusiastic to be a part of this, because one of the things that Amy had a deep passion for was children. And she wanted opportunity and goodness, and she made it her career, and she made it her life's work for the 33 brief years that she was here on this earth to do that, including the beginnings of an orphanage in Africa, and that work continues today in the name of Amy through our Amy Bell Charities. So, to much who is much is given, much is required, and pay it forward. So tonight we follow the example set for us by our ranching neighbors to the west and to the east. Several years ago, the Scarborough family made it possible for the citizens of Midland to establish the Scarborough Sports Complex. Before that, the Ratliff family and the Hurt family made it possible for the citizens of Odessa to create Ratliff Stadium and to perpetuate the time-honored tradition in this part of the world of Friday night lights. Think of the impact those 2 projects have had in supporting youth and young people in both Ector and Midland counties for decades, and by extension, the entire Permian Basin. Tonight, as our way of saying thank you to many citizens of Odessa and Ector County, several of which are gathered with us here tonight, who have helped and supported us through all the ups and downs of the last 100 years, the Parks Bell family does offer tonight to make a gift of land. This gift, similar to the ones in the past by our kind and generous ranching neighbors, this gift would be approximately 100 acres of land inside the city limits of Odessa and inside of our Parks Bell Ranch North planned community. This will be our part of this important and critical public-private partnership, and this will be the Bell family's part on the private side. We're going to leave the next opportunity to all of our friends to join with us, both from a public and private point of view, to make this a reality. It is our desire that this land be used for the perpetual, Mr. Attorney, our perpetual benefit of all the youth of Odessa through the development of your sports complex of Odessa. This complex, as you have proposed, would be built to include numerous different sports activities and be for children and youth of every age. The Permian Basin truly has given our family so many blessings. Tonight, should you choose to accept this gift of land for the complex, we would invite all the many companies, businesses, families of the Permian Basin who have been similarly blessed by our time here in the Permian Basin to join with us and pay it forward. And we would ask that they consider doing it in a significant way for the youth of Odessa and for the Permian Basin. These young people are our future. Let's do something special for them and for future generations. A project like this has been needed in Odessa for a long, long time. Let's work together now, public and private partnership, and make this happen. God bless.
God bless you.
Mayor, so now you need to get a motion to accept the escrow agreement.
Okay, there'll be.
Number 4.
Number 4.
I think we've already,
So consider the approval of the escrow agreement for the P-Bar Parks Bell Ranch Limited, Permian Basin Title Service Incorporated in the City of Odessa for the purpose of the appointment of an escrow agent for the donation of the almost 100-acre tract for land of the construction of a sports complex and a children's park. Council, any discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So
A
moved.
motion by Councilmember
Second.
Thompson, second by Councilmember Swanner. Any discussion? All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously.
now, Mayor, this is why we suspended the rules. The most important thing, naming. What you gonna name this? Sports Foundation.
Okay.
And I'm just your attorney, but it looks like to me, if what I understand about Amy Bale is that she loved horses. And she loved kids. She even went to work for the Child Protective Services after Tarleton State. Is that correct? She loved horses, was in Dennis, Texas, and Parker, raising quarter horses, cutting horses. One of them was named was Cash or something. I would recommend that you name it the Amy Bale Sports Foundation. But I'm just your attorney. I don't get the final say. That's what I would recommend. And then, because that is something we can all get behind. It's not political. We can all get behind Amy Bell.
Council, does anybody have any other recommendations or in discussion?
Hard to top that one.
Cutting horses, I believe, is what she raised, which I found fascinating.
I'll open up to council for discussion.
Hang on, Mayor. I think Mr. Bell wants to say something.
I owe it to my family to say this. The most private, personal person I knew in terms of her philanthropy was Amy Bell. And we have wrestled a great deal over time. Because I'm sure she's screaming at us right now from up above. Because it was never about her.
No.
It was about her work. And most of her friends didn't even really know what all she was involved in and what all she was doing. That's
Yep.
just who she was. And I will tell you this, our gift to you is because we want this to be the Odessa Sports Complex for this community and for this entire region and what have you. And you have the right to do whatever you want to with regard to the naming, but I can promise you, we did ask that we be able to name a special location out there within the park, that 5 acres, that we would be able to name it the Amy Bell Memorial Park, because I can tell you from our first days of approving that master plan 10 years ago,
Yep.
Ellen and I and the family designated that area, that we were someday going to designate that as the Amy Bell Memorial Park and make something special for children.
Right.
And something that would be connected to our ranching heritage, because the ranchers in this part of the world have made a major contribution to what's going on in these communities. And we wanted to be able to sort of recognize that and acknowledge it in appreciation for not only our heritage, but also that of all the other important families that have been a part of this community for so many generations and so many years. So I would simply tell you that that's such a very kind and generous gesture and what have you. But I can tell you that it's not necessary. And I would simply say to you that it's your decision. And obviously, you've done a little bit of research on Amy's background.
That's why they keep me around, so that I look around and nosy about stuff. So yes, sir,
I just want you to know that we don't ask for that, and I promise you Amy doesn't ask for that.
what, I guess, Mr. Bell, I'm asking on your behalf and on Amy's behalf. Because what I read about her, nothing short of fascinating. And she was loving and caring, and I think that it's only appropriate because people can get behind Amy Bell. We can get behind her.
I will tell you this, that I would hasten to add, Brian and Matthew, their wives and their children are the same people as Amy was. Raised in the same house, he cared about the same things. It took a different course in terms of their occupations and their destiny. But I can tell you, they've got hearts the size of Texas, and that's why it was so easy for this family as a group, for those of us who remain, to get together in a very brief meeting and say, look, this is something that this community needs. We need to pay it forward.
We do.
Let's do this in that way. I'll leave it to the rest of you.
We do.
Well, for clarification, the board and everything is for the foundation is to accept the donations. The donations of, because this is a private, public partnership, primarily private.
Yep.
And in order for us to be able to legally accept all this, we have to be able to create the board, the nonprofit.
Yep.
So this is just the naming of the foundation that will be accepting it. Currently, right now, one exists that is a private, it's the Parks Foundation.
Yep.
The city is hired just to collect the dollar and then make a payout for a minimal fee. And so the park is yet to be named. You know, the park is something that is being out there marketed, and it'll go out to the highest bidder to be able to name it. This is the private sector of it. So as of right now, we have one nomination for the Amy Bell's Sports Foundation for the nonprofit 501c3. Council, I'll open it up for open discussion. Anyone has any other suggestions? Let's go ahead and hear from them. Anybody has anything else?
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it. I think it's an honor to recognize your family.
Yes.
And it's an honor if we name the Sports Complex Foundation after her, and it will be an honor to name the memorial site that you want named after her.
Councilman Thompson?
I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay.
Agree.
Councilman Haney?
You get no argument out of me.
Wow, okay. I see everybody wadded up what they had, and so. To the Bell family, I respect, everything that Amy stood for and what you have stand for. And I think that, I think it's consensus of this council that Amy's legacy and the Bell legacy continue to be done in the form and fashion that your family has continued to exhibit. Behind the scenes, the foundation is here to collect. I think that on an annual basis, this board will be able to go forward to continue the mission quietly that Amy has had as a legacy, to continue an ongoing in the future for Odessans, to continue this foundation so it could continue to contribute, collect, and contribute and distribute and allocate these funds for this youth and the sports of this community. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adopt the Amy Bell Sports Foundation as the new nonprofit that will oversee the collection and donations and expenditures of the new sports complex. Council, do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mata. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cornell. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed
Aye.
indicating by saying nay. Motion is passed unanimously for the new Amy Bell's Sports Foundation, newly created today. Congratulations, and thank you very much.
Mayor, I do believe we have a few folks that would like to speak. I know Mr. Sewell's here, and I got to talk to him beforehand, so he handed me his card, so I think he wants to speak on this.
Okay, we got, let me look. Let me just separate some of these. I don't have some of these designated. Okay. So would you, Mr. Sewell, would you come forward? You want to be able to speak on item 3?
Mr. Mayor and City Council, Colin Sewell, 90 Woodhaven Drive in Odessa. I think that it's very interesting when things come to a reality that they all start with a dream of something that could be. And in my own career, in my own life, I've seen that come to pass because dreams are very easy to think about. There have been many of us that have talked about a sports complex in Odessa for many years. And it's something that's desperately needed in our community when I think about the quality of life that we want to provide for our citizens. And tonight, Mr. Bell and Ellen and all of you, gentlemen in the back, you've taken that dream and created a vision for our community. And on behalf of myself, my family, and countless other families who have dreamed of this being possible, I want to thank you. Some of you may or may not know, but the very businesses that we have in Odessa today sit on Parks Bell land. And if it had not been for the grace and mercy of Larry Bell and his family, they would not exist today. And so I have been a recipient myself of their own kindness and generosity. And so, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you and for the council for making this decision. And now I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders in our community to take what was a dream and is now a vision and make it a reality. And my hope for our community is that this reality will be the new cornerstone for what Odessa is known for. Because in the past, we have been known for a lot of things. Some of them good, some of them not so good. And my real hope is that this new park will become the cornerstone of what Odessa becomes known for, what your leadership is known for, and what this community is known for is a community that is focused on the future and not the past, on family and not feuds, and that this is really an opportunity for us to write an entire new chapter. And I happen to believe that only on the other side of this life will we have the opportunity to meet the countless thousands upon thousands who will benefit from the tree that the Bell family has planted tonight. Absolutely. So thank you very much for your commitment to make this a reality. Thank you for working together. And my hope is that we create a sports park that is known across the country for its excellence, and that we don't compromise in anything, but rather we make it something that makes the headlines for what the new Odessa looks like. So thank you, and God bless. Thank you all very much.
We're gonna have to make some changes on the consent agenda before we move forward.
Mayor, is that the only person that was going to speak on?
Well, on item 3, yes. I do have Windmill Crossing. Where do we have that on the agenda?
But that's not on the agenda.
I'm not seeing that, so that's non-agenda item. So we have, okay, so real quickly, before we move on to our non-agenda items, will you give out the rules on non-agenda items and the speaking rules and minimum requirements, maximum requirements?
It is 3 minutes per person. If you're representing an organization, it is 6 minutes.
For each person or for the
No,
organization?
just for the organization as a whole. So if you have 10 people, you only get 6 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So let me bring up Windmill Crossing, Dustin. So on this one, I have Corey and Dustin. Corey is designating 3 minutes to Dustin. So can you do that on the non-agenda? Total of 6 minutes.
Total 6 minutes. 6 minutes is total.
6 minutes.
Good evening, council. And I'll be brief and considerate of your time. We're appreciative of your time and the recent dialogue that we've had. Given that it's been a month since we were last here on the agenda, we wanted to just simply try to be fully transparent and offer an update on what we consider to be achievable timeline on all the moving parts of our Windmill Crossing community. We had hoped to be on the agenda for today. The development agreement would be on the agenda for today. However, I understand that will be placed on the August 8th agenda for your consideration. We had built this timeline assuming that we could commence phase 1 and offsite water and sewer construction after today's discussion, assuming July 28th. But we are, and if desired, we could still provide performance bonds to achieve this timeline to mitigate any risk to the city. But with that timeline, we could achieve home construction in January 2024 once that phase 1 and the offsite is city approved by your staff. Thereafter, the forecasted completion of the first part that we have discussed would be shortly thereafter in June of 2024 after our first home closing in May. Steps between now and then that we are working and collaborating with staff on include the application for the preliminary plat of 100% of the property that you all had requested. We're looking to achieve the submittal date of August 31st, which would mean a plating conference thereafter September, and planning and zoning meeting on the 21st. We understand that, go ahead.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I understand that it's, in discussion with city staff, it's been implied that they would like us to rezone a portion of the property in order to rationalize the zoning for what we propose to build relative to the zoning that was previously approved. If that is desired, we could also submit that application in parallel to the plat at the end of August. So we still have an opportunity to achieve the timeline. We were surprised that we weren't on today's agenda, but nonetheless, we are at a turning point, a critical one. And again, we are asking that staff be allowed to release permits for commencement of our phase 1 water and sewer construction and the offsite phase water and sewer construction. And again, if desired, we would be happy to provide payment and performance bonds to mitigate any risk to the city. But our heart in this, and it's been a blessing for us to have been here as a company for 16 years, having sold 3,600 homes, and we do view this as a partnership with you all and your staff. We're embedded in this community with all of our home construction employees and trades living here locally, and we want to help you all and staff any way that we can in our effort. We recognize that allowing us to start water and sewer construction requires your trust, and if there's any incremental risk that I'm not seeing, please let us know so we can figure out how to mitigate that. We all want the same thing. Our heart in this has been to commence development in order to get affordable home construction and all economic activity going at the level that the market desires as early as possible. Even helping us save 2 weeks prior to the next city council meeting would allow us to reduce a very important gap and allow our folks to get back to work. And again, finally, we all desire the same thing, and with continued collaboration and trust, we look forward to your continued partnership for many years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will, I forgot to say this, but since this is a non-agenda item, council cannot respond. You can direct staff to respond or whether tonight or in another, at a later date. So I would like to call up our planning and zoning, Elizabeth Shaughnessy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I just want to do some clarifications. We're still working with B&BO for their master plan for the overall design. While we were reviewing, we realized that the zoning wasn't matching. So therefore, we need to go with the rezone. And the reason for that is because their lots are smaller than our regular zoning allows for. So we need to do a plan development district for housing development to be able to accept what they have been proposing since day one. It was just adopted with the wrong zoning. So in order to not delay anything, we're trying to work together. So you might be seeing the preliminary plat before the zoning, but at the end, it all should close at the same time.
Okay. That work? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so, this is why we suspended the rules, so we can jump around and get some people in and out of here. So, we wind up having, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4. Okay, so I have 4 that say individual, request to speak, but 3 basically say OSA, soccer, Sherwood, OSA. OSA, soccer field, Sherwood Park, OSA, OSA.
6 minutes for total, per organization.
Okay, and then I have an individual item, agenda 6, so that's separate. I have another one that doesn't have anything, just individual request speak. And so, Tanya? So my question is here is, if we have a Ms. Lane, Myers, David Hissaw, and Wheaton, you're all representing OSA. So I got 4 people. And so between you 4, because a non-agenda item, you only have 6 minutes. That's 3 minutes each. That means 2 people can speak on OSA. Y'all want to decide who that's going to be?
Or one person for.
Or 1 person for 6 minutes? I want to draw cards. How do you want to handle it? So you want 3 minutes or 6 minutes?
6 minutes.
6 minutes, okay. Just give your full name and only your full name for the record.
My name's David Hassall. Live here in Odessa. I'm an OSA board member. I would like to spend my 6 minutes rebuttal with the rhetoric that Max Reyes, your new Parks Administrator, told the council at the previous meeting. OSA has building permits, OSA has plumbing permits, OSA has electrical permits, OSA has building inspections for every phase of the construction. OSA has not been working at night. We've had a good relationship with the council for over 30 years, and Max has destroyed that in 6 weeks on the job with his rhetoric. OSA has never requested any money from the city of Odessa. OSA has never received any money from the city of Odessa. The entire move from Sherwood Park that was detailed in July 27th, 2021 minutes said OSA will move their building to Sherwood, erect their building. It didn't say temporary. They will move their building. It will contain a concession stand at OSA expense. OSA submitted engineered drawings to plan inspection to get these permits. There was no arms twisted. There was no under table deals. The rhetoric that has been posted from the accountability page, putting Max up on a big stand, is not true. He has destroyed all the relationship we had with you guys the last 30 years in 6 weeks. He has no paper trail. When he presented himself to the council 2 weeks ago, there was no paper trail. OSA has receipts, has checks. They paid for everything with permits, with approval. We didn't ask for a dime from anyone. Like I say, we care about the kids. We've invested in new goals. We've invested in lighting around the building to make it safer. And the complaints are there's no parking around the park. The city has an Easter egg hung at the park, and you can't get even close to that park. Mayor, you had a big get-together when you got elected at the community center. You couldn't park anywhere around the park. Mm-hmm. If you drive down 49th tonight, the skate park has kids out in the streets. You can't even hardly drive down the street. So there's plenty of reasons for the residents to complain about the parking. But when you live next to a park, it's just part of living by the park. Go by the swim park on Saturday, and they're parked everywhere around the swim park. So OSA has violated no ordinances. OSA has followed every city ordinance, every permit. We have the documentation. We have emails between planning and inspection, Steve Patton, even Sammy, and there's multiple city employees on those emails saying OSA has permission to erect this building at Sherwood Park. We haven't went behind anybody's back. We haven't twisted anybody's arm. It's about the kids. We want the kids to have a nice park to play, nice fields. Max asked us to hire a landscaping company to fix Sherwood Park the other day, and a week later he called and asked us to drill a well. We have never asked for money from the city, and we won't. We can maintain the fields. We can make it safe for the kids, and it needs to be about the kids. The rhetoric on Facebook is unnecessary. We could have sit down with Max, we could have sit down with you guys and worked this out, and all this, the name calling, who gave permission, it's unfortunate that previous city employees are getting dragged into this. We had a great relationship with Steve Patton, and we weren't his favorite. We got denied all the time for things we wanted, and I can assure you, Gary, in plan inspection, you're not going to twist his arm. His own family's not going to twist his arm. Permits will be issued according to the law. So we want to make it clear to the council and the people of Odessa, we haven't been working at night. And if we were, there's not an ordinance against that. But we haven't had any work in that building since soccer ended. But if we were working at night, you can do that. But if somebody saw something going at night, it was the robot striping fields, because we do that at night. We're volunteers. So it's unfortunate that it has come to this. We certainly want to work something out with the city. Our priority is the kids and a strong program. I would say, instead of the residents complaining about the parking, why wouldn't they be glad we have such a strong program? Look at it and say, that's great. The kids are having fun. The kids are playing soccer. They're not in trouble. And we want to work with the council and the city, but we were given a black eye by the council meeting 2 weeks ago by Max, and we have done nothing under the table. We have permits, we have email, we have everything in order, and you guys haven't spent any taxpayer money to fund what we're doing at the park. We need to focus on the kids and come to a resolution. If it was a bad choice, well, let's sit down and work something out, and we will resolve it instead of being keyboard warriors every evening on Facebook. So.
I will remind council this is a non-agenda item. We cannot respond in any form or fashion. But we can direct staff to further to mitigate this.
Okay.
Any other stand.
Okay.
We do have another speaker, Mr. Martinez, on agenda item number 6.
What is 6?
On the consent agenda.
It's item 6 on the consent agenda, which is titled, consider approval of city council work session minutes.
Yeah, basically
Is
the
that correct?
same information that David was talking about at the meeting.
Hold on, sir. Is it according to the approval of the city council work session?
Yeah, the
item
minutes,
6?
yeah. It's the same
Okay.
issue that David was just talking about at the.
No, well,
July
sir,
meeting.
I'm just asking you, will you confirm that it is about the work session minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so your discussion, since you specifically said about city council work session minutes, if you leave it to the content of the minutes.
Right.
Then council can engage in a conversation.
Right,
But if you piggyback on his topics,
right.
then you cannot speak on that. Because
No,
the
I'm
6
talk-
minutes have been,
No, I'm talking about
whatever's left of the 6 minutes, you can speak on that.
I'm talking about the item number 6, which is the same stuff that he was talking about, but it's item number 6
Okay.
specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have 3 minutes.
So basically the same issues. I just wanted to focus that, or bring focus to the point that at Odessa Soccer Association, we're all volunteers. Our focus has always been for the kids to have a place to play soccer in
Mr.
Odessa.
Martinez, do you have anything to specifically say about the work session minutes? Because that's what you wanted to speak on.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Is that okay if I follow through or do you
Yes,
need
sir,
me
I'm
to
just
go
trying
right
to
to
keep you on task so we don't have a violation of
Sure, I understand.
the.
Anyway, we're
of the meeting.
volunteers, we're for the kids, just as Mr. Bell mentioned when he was here. We want to do stuff for the kids the very best we can, and we have done stuff for the kids for as long as I've been around, which has been since 1994. The allegations that Max made at the work session on July the 11th were completely and totally inaccurate. As David said, we have all the permits, we have permission. We want to make it clear to the council, to the city, that OSA has done nothing underhanded. Our focus has always been on the kids. We have always had a very good relationship. It's more like a partnership with the city of Odessa, working in tandem for the benefit of soccer and for the benefit of the youth of Odessa to play soccer in Odessa, in the city of Odessa, at Sherwood Park. We respectfully want to have a chance, which we have a meeting scheduled on Thursday, to defend ourselves for the issues that Max brought up at the meeting on July the 11th.
Okay. Anything else, sir? Anything on the minutes?
Specifically on the minutes, as David mentioned, we have permits,
But
we
that's
have
not
written
on the
permission.
minutes, sir. The work session, item 6 on the minutes, there was a highlight in the minutes. And that's why I was asking if you have anything pertaining to the actual minutes that was presented in the last meeting. You haven't addressed any of those. Do you want to address anything specific in the minutes?
Well, the minutes that I saw basically were exactly that, where the part that we were contesting was the issues that Max brought up about.
Those were not in the minutes, sir. I know, I read the minutes, and that's why I'm asking that question. So it's basically, it's everything you have to say, that's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're gonna move on with the consent agenda. Council, no ma'am, no ma'am, no ma'am, we're done.
I'm just a community member.
I understand, ma'am.
It has nothing to do with the facility.
Ma'am, if you want to speak to this council,
I'm Ms.
Go-
Myers. I did fill out my card.
yes, Ms. Meyer,
Yeah, I'm not associated.
you want to tell her?
It's short. I have it written out. I just
Yes,
have to read as a
yes, but the
mother.
thing is that she wants to speak on the OSA behalf.
Not,
And so she felt, that's why I asked, so,
I'm not a part of the association.
I-
I'm just a community member, a mom, and a coach.
so the thing is that we can't address it, so here's, this is why I asked this question, that's why I'm asking, I don't wanna get into a violation.
No, well, let's let her speak.
So that's right there, it was OSA Association, that's why I asked
Okay,
that
yeah.
question. Okay,
Yeah, let's let her speak then.
Thank you.
Ms. Myers, you have 3 minutes, just state your name for the record, and the reason, and I want to explain, the reason why we're so stringent on the consent agenda is that we're held to a very tight, what we can and cannot do.
Yes, sir.
And so we've been sued for this, and this is why I'm stickler for the rules.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I
I'm not trying to
understand.
deny anybody to speak, but I am going to be a stickler for the rules.
Yes, sir.
You have 3 minutes, ma'am. Just
Thank you.
state your full name for the, state your.
Janae Myers.
You got 3 minutes.
Good evening, council members. My name is Janae Myers, and I have been a resident of Odessa, Texas for 10 years. I'm standing here today to speak on an issue regarding your recent changes to the Odessa Soccer Association's field accommodations. Before I go into details of why this change is not only inadequate, I will explain how this change can affect the lives of our future generations. To you, it's just recreational soccer, right? But to me, soccer is everything. I attended St. Edward's University, the University of Texas Permian Basin, and I'm currently attending Texas Tech University in pursuit of my MBA. I would not have had these opportunities without receiving a full scholarship for soccer. I grew up in a town much smaller than Odessa, not much to offer outside of safety, dairy cattle, and fall foliage. We had sports and the appropriate accommodations for all that wished to participate. Soccer allowed me to leave that small town, paid for my higher education, and allowed me to see the world. It taught me discipline, teamwork, and allowed me to have the courage and opportunity to stand here today, despite my general discomfort in public speaking. I admire your efforts and the generosity of the Bell family for a new sports complex. It's a huge benefit to the children in our community. But let's talk about what happens in the interim. Your request to move OSA's games to Comanche Fields shows me that you're out of touch with the program and its impacts on the community. Downsizing field availability, which I've played on all of them, and its impact on, will limit the number of teams that can participate. And selfishly, to me, the younger teams will likely get first cut, putting my daughter and the other 5 girls that I coach at home and without. Taking these opportunities away from our children is wrong. I ask you today to reconsider your position on this matter. Until this complex is complete, we rely on the city to provide space for these children to learn, grow, and thrive. I pray that all the children of Odessa are afforded the opportunities that I was because I had a community that supported me. So thank you for your time and for your service.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 6, consent agenda. Council, I will respectfully ask for a motion to remove item 8 from the consent agenda. Will you review the consent agenda, and then I will respectfully request for the item 8 to be removed from the consent agenda, and for considering grant specific use permit request to allow workforce housing in industrial contract district in Lot 6, Block 2, OIDC Park. Do I need a motion to remove it from the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Thompson. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Mata. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 8 is removed. Council, will you overlook the consent agenda? And if it's agreeable as presented, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda minus item 8 as proposed.
Your 3 minutes are up.
3 minutes are up. Any discussion? Motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 8.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Swanner. Do I have a second by
Second.
Councilmember Mata? All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 8, consider grant and specific use for permit request to allow workforce housing industrial contract district in Lot 6, Block 2, OIDC Park. Mayor will be abstaining on this vote. Council, reviewing item 8, do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion for approval by Councilmember Swanner. Do I have a
Second.
second? Second by Councilmember Haney. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes 5 votes in favor, 1 abstention with the mayor. All right, now we're moving on to item 11, regular. Consider early termination, non-renewal of the Napa Barron Services contract. Mr. Adams.
Mayor, council, as many of y'all may or may not be aware, the city has been in a long-term agreement with Napa Auto Parts, AKA Barron Services, in which we provide them a brick and mortar building, electricity, water, internet, telephone, a warehouse, etc. This all comes at a monthly expense between $18,000 and $22,000 a month for management fees. These management fees are the profit that they make off the sale of parts to us, in addition to their staff's wages, their 401ks, their health insurance, even their fuel. This is a win-win for Barron, but not for the city, due to the fact that they're effectively operating a business with no overhead. So I would like to move everything back in-house, hire our own employees to run our parts department, and I would ask the council to not renew the contract that expires in February 28th of next year, and to also exercise the right for a 90-day early termination, so that the termination coincides with the end of the start of our fiscal year, just so it's a much cleaner break. In addition, I would like to ask that we, in this termination, if approved, that we agree to purchase all parts that are currently in inventory, the Napa parts, in addition to the non-Napa parts that we have in inventory.
And I believe the contract calls for that.
I think it only called for the non-Napa parts.
Non-Napa parts, yeah.
But I would like to go ahead and purchase all of the
Purchase all
Napa
of them.
parts. So it's not, it works out better.
Council, any discussion?
So I'm trying to understand this. So who pays the inventory?
They basically host the inventory. They supply the inventory to us, except for the parts that they buy outside for us. So the parts they buy from
Third party?
Sewell, Ford, et cetera, Chevrolet dealership, all of those, they purchase those and then they mark those up to us. And we pay for them as we use them. So it's basically a Napa Auto Parts inside our building.
So what we're doing is covering all their overhead plus paying for the markup on the parts?
That is correct.
And Mr. Adams, do they deliver parts? Do those 3 guys deliver parts outside to do we?
In my time here, I have seen parts drivers come and pick parts up and leave,
Okay.
in addition to parts being delivered to us. When I met with Barron last week, they said that that inventory is theirs and they're allowed to use it if so needed at their other locations.
Mr. Adams, do you have an approximate value of the Napa parts that are housed there at the moment?
Approximately $249,000.
Okay.
And that includes Napa and non-stop.
Okay.
Mr. Adams, where would the 249 be coming out of for the purchase from the equipment services?
Yes.
Okay. Council, any further discussion? So your recommendation is for a 90-day early termination and non-renewal of NAPA, which will expire February 28th of '24.
That is correct.
Council, have any discussion?
So are we wanting to kill this 90 days beforehand, before February? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I want the termination to coincide with the beginning of our fiscal year, October 1st.
October 1. Council, any discussion?
Mr. Jones, is there anything in there in canceling early on that with contract?
No, it's a 90-day. We have to give them a 90-day notice and we're good.
Any further discussion?
So all the parts that are there we'll be using? Every one of them?
That is correct.
Council, any further discussion, comments? Motion, favor of 4, favor against? Mr. Jones, you have anything to add?
Have nothing to add.
I saw your lips moving. I thought you were going to say. you were
No,
leaning
no.
forward, your lips were-
No. No, sir. Other than it's just a 90-day out, that's all it is.
You witnessed that Lori didn't have anything to say.
Yeah, I think that's a miracle tonight.
I'll make a motion that we accept his recommendation to terminate the agreement in 90 days.
Okay, so there's a motion by Councilmember Swanner for consideration of early termination being 90 days and non-renewal of the Napa Barron Services contract, expiration February 28th, 2024. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Councilmember Cornell. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 12, consider appointment. Consider appointment of Jen Beckmeyer as the city manager and award of a contract. Mr. Jones.
Mayor, this is the contract that Mr. Beckmeyer has agreed to. I believe that he has sent a letter in to y'all saying that he would accept the appointment. It's dated the 25th of July, and he says it is, dear Mayor and City Council members, it is a great appreciation that I accept this appointment as city manager for the city of Odessa. I'm eager to get to work with you all and the city staff to serve the citizens of Odessa. And he says that his last day with the Republican Party will be Tuesday, August 8th, and he will begin his new position in Odessa Thursday, August 10th. Says again, thank you for the confidence you have placed in me. And this is simply his contract.
Council, do you have any discussion, any specifics that you need to know?
Well, I'd like to make a statement, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm having a real problem with all this. First of all, I don't understand why a gentleman, we had specific criteria, which, we said a bachelor's degree from accredited institution, field of public administration, business administration, management or related fields, 3 or more years professional experience as city manager, assistant city manager, department head or private sector leadership role in an organization with approximately 1,000 employees in the state of Texas. This gentleman has a degree, not any of those things. So that, number one, that really bothers me, the fact that he would even submit an application based on the fact that he doesn't meet any of those criteria. Second problem I have is that when I visited with the consultants after we had named him as the finalist, and I guess I didn't think about it before that, but my problem is that this man with no qualifications has jumped over. We had 51 applications, 4 finalists, and how the two consultants jumped him over 47 other people when he has no qualifications whatsoever. So with that being said, I just have a real problem with this gentleman's appointment.
Duly noted. Council, any other conversation, any other direction, any other comments? Simply what tonight is, the appointment has already been made on Jen Beckmeyer. This is just simply, tonight is about the contract, the financial, the financials for the position. And so, council, do we need to go over the specifics on the contract? Or is everybody?
It does say
well-versed?
consider the appointment of.
Okay.
This is the official appointment.
It's the official appointment. We
Okay.
voted 7-0 in executive session to.
For the appointment.
For the appointment. So this
Okay.
is just consideration for the
Okay, so
contract.
we, council, any other objections, any other specifics you want to add before we consider the official appointment and the acceptance of the contract? I duly and correct.
I got something to say also. Just to Councilman Thompson, while we were in that time in executive session where we were discussing all this and we took the final vote and there was a unanimous 7-0 vote, why weren't any of these?
Out in the dais. We made the,
You're right,
we made the
correct, you're right.
consensus out in the dais.
Why weren't any of these issues brought up at that point?
Well, I could see that became clear to me that any choice that I wanted was not going to be anywhere considered. And, you know, I made myself notes. I probably should have said something then. I didn't think it was the appropriate time to do it. We still had time to consider the contract and the negotiations with him. So I was hoping that maybe he might withdraw his application, I guess, but as I kept working through it, and I asked consultants, you know, why they jumped him over 47 people, and I was met with total silence on the end of the phone. And when that happened, that spoke volumes to me.
And this didn't happen to none of the op-eds that were written by Kirk Edwards in the Odessa
No.
American or any of the public outcry that we had that was supposedly on this nomination had any effect on this or?
No, none at all.
Okay.
None whatsoever. You know, I have had a lot of comments from my constituents that they don't understand, you know, how this even possibly happened, so. But I'm just telling you what happened after we got through and research that I, you know, did afterward, is what I found, so.
Any other further discussion? Okay. Council, do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Swanner.
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Haney. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying?
No.
Motion, no? Okay. Motion passes for a new appointment and designation for John Beckmeyer to be the new city manager for the city of Odessa with the contract as proposed and is accepted. 5 votes in favor and 1 nay. All right, we're gonna move on to item, now, are we on 13?
Yes.
Item 13, consider appointment of qualified attorney for replacement of associate alternate judge for Odessa Municipal Court. Appointment of Judge Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you all may remember, sorry?
I said good evening.
Oh, good evening, yes, sir. As you all may remember, the court currently has 3 alternate judges, also known as associate judges, whose primary duty is to handle jail magistration on weekends and holidays. One of our judges, Stuart McKeon, is retiring. His last weekend working with the city will be August 5th. The city charter and city code of ordinances gives the council the authority to appoint as many alternate judges as they deem necessary. So I'm here tonight to ask you all to appoint a new alternate judge to take Mr. McKeon's place. These judges are not salaried employees. They do not receive benefits from the city. They work only on specific days that they are ordered to, and they are only paid for those days in hourly rates. These judges have to meet the same qualifications as the presiding judge, so they have to be licensed attorneys in the state of Texas with 2 years of practice in the state of Texas. They must also be residents of the state and qualified voters of the city. Mr. McKeon was nice enough to give us an advance notice of his retirement, so we have reached out to local attorneys to see who may be interested in joining the team and basically be willing to practice on weekends and holidays outside of their normal duties. And we have found somebody, so if the council is willing to appoint a new judge and would like a recommendation, I certainly have one for you all. And of course, if you would like to do your own search, you all are able to do that as well. That's your decision. And I'll take any questions if you have any.
I have one, Judge Rodriguez, and our city attorney may need to ask it. Does Mr. McKean need to write something to council in writing that he's given notice? Or does he give you something notice? Do we need something in writing?
I couldn't find anything in the ordinance, Mr. Jones. I don't know if you know of anything that says,
Other than the Section 68 municipal court that the city council, they do the appointing, so I would assume that he would need to send a letter to them saying that he is resigning, retiring, doing that, or whatever.
and I could definitely pass that along to Mr. McKean.
Judge, you say you had recommendations. What did you have? What do you have with you? Do you have any that was recommended? What do you have with you?
These are just notes that I had just in case I needed them. But I do have an attorney who I've spoken to directly who is willing to take on the job if you all would like a recommendation.
You're making the recommendation?
Yes, if you would like one. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I do have some questions.
Yes, sir.
So under that section, the alternate judges are hired and appointed, I'm sorry, they're appointed by the council. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
What is, under our charter and what our policy and procedures, I don't know which one it falls under. When it comes to alternate judges, do they go through the same process of every other appointee that serves at the council's pleasure?
To my knowledge, they do.
Is that through the application process that's sent out?
That, to my knowledge, yes. Since
Okay.
you do, since the council does appoint them, they do need to come before you and request that they be appointed.
Now, here's the other question. Judge, you basically said, we have made a search and we have a recommendation. Can you give us specifics as who we are?
Yes, sir. So the other alternate judges that work on the weekends, they spoke to other local attorneys just to see who may be interested. Mostly because we thought it may be difficult to find an attorney who's willing to work on weekends and holidays. And I knew I was coming before the council, and in case you wanted a recommendation, I wanted to have one ready for you all.
When were you notified by this alternate judge that they were going to resign?
I do not have the exact date, but it's been a few months now.
A few months ago?
Yes, sir.
Council, when were we notified about the resignation? We still haven't received anything.
2 weeks ago at our municipal court committee meeting. Was that 2 weeks ago?
That's correct. I let the court committee know as soon as we had our next meeting. That was the next meeting that we had available.
You were
after I
aware
was
2
let.
months ago. When were you notified in the committee?
2 weeks ago, or
Judge, at any point in time when we received that resignation, you didn't feel it deemed that you needed to contact the mayor's office or the city council about this? There was a retirement, or the committee members 2 months ago when you heard of it? But you didn't commence in a search with the alternate judge to find someone. Now, let me ask this question. Is that the role of the alternate judges and you as the municipal court judge, is to go find a replacement alternate judge and then come and make a recommendation to the council? I'm just trying to stick with procedure because I don't want to get a violation.
Yes, sir. So that was my earliest opportunity that we met with the city municipal court committee, so that's when I let them know. As far as the search, again, I just wanted to be prepared before I came to council in case the council members did ask me for a recommendation. And I know when we had our committee meeting, I was asked if I had a recommendation, so I just wanted to be prepared.
Judge Rodriguez, in the past, has there ever been a procedure in replacing alternate judges where you've taken on that role and the other alternate judges to seek an alternate judge and then come to council and be prepared for if council asks a recommendation?
This is the first time this has happened since I've been a judge. The other alternate judges have all been on the court for at least a decade, if I'm correct, and they couldn't remember exactly what the policy or the procedure was. They thought that the presiding judge at the time made a recommendation for them to be hired as alternate judges, so that's why I wanted to be
Judge,
prepared.
anytime did you ever think to seek the advice of the city attorney or ask the council or the interim city manager?
No, sir, the search that we did was all just very preliminary. Again, wasn't anything that we put out any kind of application process, anything like that. It was just to get a feel of the local legal communities to see who may be interested.
But Judge, we do have a process for that. And one of the things is when we go through that, we have to go through the process to be able to appoint someone. The reason is that when any appointment is considered by any form or fashion in any of the voluntary boards, especially when it comes to an alternate judge, do you not feel it's pertinent for us to be able to stay with that policies and procedures that we've adopted that has served this community decade after decade. Do you feel that that's important?
Yes, sir. That's why I stated to the council tonight that I have a recommendation if you all would like one. Otherwise, I also definitely know that it's within the council's purview to do your own search.
Okay, I think, I guess,
But Judge, the problem is, who is the one that you're gonna put forth? Who is the person? Because they're nowhere to be found in any of the council agenda items. And that's an open meetings violation,
Well,
waiting to happen. I'm not
That-
about to let that happen.
that's the whole point. I guess I'm trying to make a point that this procedure and the role that you took on to place this on the item agenda, and this is another question. It says here that the item on the agenda was placed by Carlos N. Rodriguez. Sir, did you get approved? Did you get a member of the dais, the mayor or the council, to place this item on the agenda? Because for any of us to be able to put an item on this agenda, we have, it takes two of us. The only person arbitrarily that can place the item on agenda is interim city manager. Did you go to the interim city manager to place it? I know I wasn't contacted. The two committee members weren't contacted, so no one on the dais placed this item on the agenda. So how did this item get on the agenda, sir? Can you give me that explanation?
absolutely. Actually, when we discussed this at our committee meeting, I was advised at that time by the council members to place this on the agenda.
Did you verify whether council members actually had put the item on the agenda before it showed up with your name on it?
They asked our office to go ahead and put the item on the agenda.
Who's they?
The council members.
So both council members contacted you and told you to place the item on the agenda?
I do not remember who specifically stated it, and maybe they can help me
So
out.
in the committee meeting, we made a recommendation that he provide this to council,
Provide provide what to council?
his recommendation.
Okay, but in the process right in here, by going through this process, it's an open meetings violation waiting to happen. And we cannot take that name, and we cannot take this recommendation. The proper procedure here is to contact those on the charter that are absolutely have the authority to place items on the agenda. And that chain of command is the interim city manager. There's also two members of the dais, because it has to be a nomination and a second. If the committee members was discussed in the committee, there had to be a verification that that process took place. And then, in order to have a recommendation, there has to be a application process that's to be sent to the city secretary's office, and then filled out, and then distributed to the city council. In case there is a PIR, it is available to anyone making that request. Is it just basically is that we can't take the recommendation, we cannot accept the process, and so we can't even consider the item 13 whatsoever. And so at a later time, you can reach out back to the committee and make a recommendation in the committee, and then allow the proper process for the committee members to make the motion and second to place this item once proper application has been filled out. So any questions, Judge, any other questions, any follow-ups you want to?
Well, just if I may respond, because I don't want it to seem that I took any steps out of my
No, this is just a clarification that
responsibilities.
we follow the rules.
Yes, sir.
Don't misunderstand. It's just basically sometimes, when there hasn't been a process that's been clear in the past, and what happens when, we don't know, we have to be very careful, and we have to cross every T and dot every I.
Sure.
We don't want to get to investigations. We've been held to a higher standard. Everything that we do is scrutinized, and so that's why we make very careful that we constantly are diligent on what that we're following all the policy and procedures in place and the laws that govern this city. And I'm sure as a judge, you can appreciate that we're trying to do our due diligence. It's just a matter, we just got to follow proper protocol. That's it.
Sure. I just wanted to be clear that I'm only thought about making a recommendation because it was asked of me by one of the council members at our committee meeting, and they were the ones that invited me to put it on the
Would have
agenda.
been to make that recommendation in committee and only in committee, and then allowed the proper process of those that are charged on the charter to be able to place this item on the agenda for our consideration. As of now, we cannot do that. Okay. So, do we have to take any action on item 13?
You can't take any action.
Okay, no table, nothing, it's
You
just,
can't do anything.
we're taking, okay. Judge, I appreciate you, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're gonna move on to item 14. Public hearing, open a public hearing to consider a request by SW Howell Incorporated for a zone change from future development to light industrial. Ms. Shaughnessy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The applicant, SW Howell, is requesting a zone change from FD, Future Development District, to LI, Light Industrial District, on a 4-acre tract of land located in Section 25, Block 42, T2S, T and P, Company Survey, Ector County, Texas, for future development. The properties adjacent to it, located to the north, are Zone LI Industrial, and the properties to the east, south, and west are Zone Future Development District. This is within compliance with our city comprehensive plan. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the zone change from Future Development District to Light Industrial District, subject to Condition A, that is that the use and development of the property shall conform to the regulations of LI Light Industrial District. 5 notices were sent and 0 were returned. So I'm now open for any questions.
Council, any questions? Any direction?
Is this one of these industrial zones that is outside the city?
It's inside the city.
Just south of the tracks, south of the emerging 8th onto 2nd, right?
Correct.
Council, any other questions? Seeing that this is a public hearing, to consider this request, I will open it up for anyone wanting to speak or address item 14. You can do so by coming forward and stating your full name and only your full name. You can do so by coming forward now. Here's Ferdinand. Seeing that nobody's coming forward, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion for approval and non-approval on item 14. Council?
Move for approval.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mata to approve item 14 as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Swanner. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. We're going to move on to item 15. Open a public hearing to consider resolution approving guidelines and criteria governing tax abatement and reinvestment zones, enterprise zones, and election to continue eligibility to participate in tax abatements. Interim City Manager Bernat.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The state requires that tax incentive guidelines be adopted every 2 years in order to continue the statutory authorizations and the ability to do tax abatements for purposes of economic development. This item will adopt the tax incentive guidelines for a new 2-year term to continue on through July 28th, 2020. This should be 2025.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yes, 2 years. The Tax Incentive Committee recommended adopting the guidelines currently in place on July 12th, 2023.
Yeah, they made a mistake, right? So the thing is that if we are to consider this, it has to be with the corrections.
It has to be with corrections.
Yes. I'd find them tomorrow.
Yes.
Somebody didn't proofread.
I
thought I'd throw him a curveball.
So they have met, and it's up to us if we want to remain eligible for these tax abatements.
Okay, I've asked these questions, Ms. Shaughnessy, on the reinvestment zones, enterprise zones, and opportunity zones. The enterprise zones, I was told that we basically have done away with them in the city, and those are the criteria that is, I guess the boundaries are set by the federal government?
So yes, so opportunity zone are set by the state.
The state?
Yes.
Okay, and so, reinvestment zones?
Reinvestments, I would have to check on those.
Okay. So, it being a public hearing, we have to do it in 2 readings?
Yes.
Okay. So, So the only thing is that we have is just the criteria on the reinvestment zones. Opportunity zones of the state, enterprise zones by the federal government, and we just have to wait to see what the reinvestment zones.
That doesn't, for the opportunity zones, that doesn't mean that you can suggest areas. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it will not get granted.
Yeah, but the thing is, they determine on their matrix of what
The criteria.
what basically can and cannot. Yeah. Okay. So in this, basically, the enterprise zones has already been designated by the federal government. I'm correct, right?
Opportunity zone.
No, but the enterprise zone, because this is also written on the enterprise zone right here.
That's the one that I would have to check on,
Okay.
and I can do it very quickly.
Okay, not a problem. I mean, the thing is, we can sit and wait. This is in 2 readings.
Okay.
Okay. There has to be some changes anyway, some corrections. Thank you, I appreciate your answer
Okay.
for that. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, sir, just your consideration.
Council, yeah, we have a consideration for item 15. Any discussion? We have a consideration for, this, we have to open it up for, comment. Seeing that this is a public hearing to consider resolution for approving guidelines and criteria for governing tax abatement and reinvestment zone, enterprise zones, and the election to continue eligibility to participate in tax abatement. Anybody wishing to address item 15 can do so by coming forward, stating their full name. You can do so by coming forward now. You have 3 minutes. Nobody? Seeing that nobody's rushing towards the podium, I will now close the open hearing and council, entertain a motion for approval on item 15, or deny.
I'll make a motion to approve with the correct changes.
We have a motion by Councilmember Swanner with the correct changes on the big typos. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Haney.
Typos.
All in favor indicating by saying aye. Aye. All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. We're gonna move on to item 16, ordinance consider authorizing the abandonment of 98th Street right-of-way in section 34, block 42, township 1. First approval. Arvet.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Council. This item is to consider authorizing the abandonment of 98th Street right-of-way. Occidental Permian Limited has requested that the city abandon 0.55 acres of 98th Street right-of-way coincide with the planned development. The abandonment is between Andrews Highway and alley east of Andrews Highway, located in Northport commercial sites. The right-of-way was dedicated by plat, but the roadway was never constructed. The city will not retain any easements over the abandoned street. The abandonment will facilitate approximately a 40,000 square foot commercial building. The business owner has agreed to the compensation due for this abandonment, and the check, $11,230 check has been provided. And city staff recommends approval of this item, and I'll be happy to answer to your questions.
Council, any questions on the abandonment of the right-of-way? Any discussion? I'll entertain approval for consideration of item 16 as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilmember Mata. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Swanner. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. You guys are a lively bunch, there's more than.
I think the bus
Somebody-
is going away there with all of them, their mayor, they've all kinds of
Somebody-
flatlined on them.
Something.
I'm barely hanging in there, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Hey, you're on medication.
drugs.
You're on drugs.
My papers are kicking in.
Yeah, okay. We gotta get through this quickly. Okay, we're gonna move on to resolution item 17. Consider the approval of MOUTD budget for fiscal year 2023-24. Mr. Provence. Oh, I want him to come up.
Oh.
You bring up the president. I want everyone to introduce who. Yes, sir. I want you to introduce.
Mayor, our council, this is the board chair for MOUTD Easy Rider, Tim Harry. If y'all haven't met him, he's a nice guy.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. All right, what are we doing here?
You presenting the budget.
Oh, I'm presenting the budget.
No, Mr. Palmer is going to present, but you have,
I think
yeah,
that's
I just
fine.
want you
I
to
think that's
introduce,
pretty
I
much
just want you to
used
introduce
I'm
this
just
guy.
here
Y'all
to
getting
support.
comedy now. See, this
Get the
liven
comedy
things
show.
up. Our local transit system that is a joint cooperation between Midland, Odessa, has been in business for 20 years now, and each year we come to the city with our budget for approval and with our hat in our hand and our hand out asking for money. Our board at our last meeting in June approved a and a B budget, which I took to the city of Midland this morning, and they approved the B budget. And both cities have always approved the same amount for each one. The budget they approved was one asking for $680,000 from the city. We're going to combine that with federal money, state money, puts a budget out of a little over $6 million, almost $6.5 million. It brings back in a lot of federal money into the area, $800,000 of state money, and it provides rides for close to a quarter million people a year in Midland, Odessa. We're running about 21,000 a month rides right at the moment, which 2,000 of those are for our paratransit service. These are people that are physically or mentally incapable of riding the fixed route system. So they take people to dialysis centers, doctor appointments, shopping, senior centers. It's 7 days a week or 6 days a week. We don't run on Sunday, and we employ 60 people is what's in this budget. 36 of which will be drivers, and we appreciate your support. And I'll take any questions, or I can wax on for a long time about transit. You know me, Mr. Mayor. I won't stop until you stop me, really.
You're good. We're going to stop you right there. Council, do we have any any questions, any discussion? No. So I want to bring up real quick. So Seth, you want to give us the requirement of the requirements between both cities and the agreements and what we have to do?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Both cities have to contribute equal amounts regarding their budget and the contribution from each city. So whatever one city provides, the second city has to provide the same amount because of the joint. They are a joint. The MOUTD is a joint venture. The requirements with grants and everything like that requires those the contribution from each city to be the exact same amount.
Because of the federal grants.
Yes, sir.
And so last year the city of Odessa contributed $600,000.
Yes, sir.
So this would be an increase of 80.
Yes, sir.
And there'd be the and then combined with Midlands.
Yes, sir.
So increase 160. The primarily be used for going up on salaries.
Absolutely, mostly for
Trying to stay
driver
competitive.
salaries.
Be competitive.
Yes, it puts our CDL driver salary directly in between the Ector County Independent School District bus drivers and the Midland Independent School District bus drivers.
Council, any other questions on that? My question is that I serve on this board. Do I have to abstain from this?
I would abstain.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I guess I would also.
As well as Mark.
Or would there be one, two, yeah, there would still be a quorum.
There's still a
Dan,
quorum.
they are not, are they voting members on the board as well?
Yes, they are voting members.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, we would have had one member, other missing, I would have told you that we'd have had to move this, which, you know, it would have been very tough because of what you have restraints, we had to get this in. So council, there's a consideration to approve the MOUTD budget for fiscal year 2023 that will include a $80,000 increase on city side participation to match with Midlands. And so this is an agreement that we have both communities to be able to access the matching grants for an increase in salaries. We'll ask the council for consideration for approval of this item.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Swan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Haney. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those against indicating by saying nay, with 2 abstentions. So we have 4 in favor, 2 abstentions, Councilmember Mata and Mayor Hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
We're gonna move on to item 18, consider authorizing the city to join the steering committee of the city served by the Encore to evaluate the filing, determine whether the filing complies with the law and unlawful, or if unlawful, to determine what further strategy includes settlement to pursue. Mr. Jones.
Mayor, in short, Encore wants to increase its distribution rates. I'm asking you to pass this resolution so that I can send it to our attorneys there, which will tell them that we're not part.
Okay. Council, any discussion? I have a motion to consider the authorizing the city to join the steering committee for the city served by Encore. I have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Mata. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Haney. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passed unanimously. Item 19, consider authorizing the City of Odessa Police Department to apply for, accept, and amending the physical budget for appropriate award funds, and additional revenue authorizing expenditure award grants from the 2023 BGA Edward Bryant Memorial. Chief.
Good evening.
Good
I would say good afternoon, but it's evening now. With your permission, Mayor, I'll explain 19 and 20 together because they go together.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
So this is just a resolution authorizing the City of Odessa Police Department to apply for and accept $91,561 in grant funds from the 2023 Bureau of Justice Assistance Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. Generally speaking, this money goes, we spend this money for protective items for officers, gloves, vest, that sort of thing. Of that $91,561, $81,271 will go to the Odessa Police Department and $10,290 go to the Ector County Sheriff's Office. It has been set up this way using a formula by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. They have asked us to be the administrator, so we administer the grant for both agencies, and they will get, again, the $10,290. There is no cash match for this. This is just money that comes to us every year. It varies from year to year. We've seen amounts in the 60s up to the 90s. So it varies depending on a formula. And again, it's we're able to spend this money on equipment and training.
Okay. Mr. Jones, can we take this, have a motion on both items to consider authorizing the city department to accept or you just want to do it on one?
Since the rules are suspended, you could do them, but it would be safer to do
Okay.
them.
So council, I will entertain a motion for item 19 to authorize the city, the OPD to apply and accept, and also to amend their physical budget to appropriate the awarded funds for additional revenues and authorizing the expenditure of awarded grants from the 2023 Edward Bryant Memorial.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Thompson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cornell. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. Move on to item 20, consider interlocal agreement with Ector County for the division of the 2023 Edward Bryant Memorial Justice Assistant Grant. Motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Swanner, second.
Second.
By Councilmember Haney. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously 6-0. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna move on to item 21, consider contracts, awards, and appropriation for funds for the I-20 utility relocation, segment 2. Mr. Kerr, we move closer forward to deconstruction.
Good evening, Mayor
Good
and
evening.
Council. For your consideration tonight are contract awards and an agreement with TxDOT. So TxDOT is deemed necessary to make certain highway improvements as designated by the state and approved by the Federal Highway Administration to Interstate Highway 20, Segment 2. Segment 2 goes from just east of JBS to east of County Road 1300. The state will be improving that roadway to 3 through lanes going each direction and changing the frontage roads to one-way. There are city utilities that will be in conflict with the design of that project, and so those utilities will need to be relocated. In February, the council approved hiring Cobb Finley to do the design to relocate those utilities, so there's some lowerings, there's some realignments and such associated with that contract. We placed the contract out for bid. We received we received two bids, but the low bid was submitted by Timco Blasting and Coating Incorporated for $4,987,519.03. This work does have to be completed in a very tight time frame. TxDOT is wanting to let this project out for bids in November. The construction needs to be entirely complete by January 2nd. Cobb Finley has provided a scope and fee as well to manage the construction of the project. This way they'll be on site to monitor the project, make sure that everything is in compliance with what they designed, as well as to be accountable for whatever design modifications may be required in the field if they do occur. So that contract is $198,060. TxDOT has provided a standard utility agreement for the project. This agreement is such that the Federal Highway Administration, because I-20 is a federal road, will be reimbursing the city for all expenditures occurring on the project. That is administered through TxDOT and this special utilities, this standard utilities agreement. So we're requesting through a resolution to authorize expenditures, the appropriation of $6,361,986 from the general fund balance, with reimbursement to be to the fund after the project is complete. Award of the contract for construction to Timco Blasting in the amount of $4,987,519.03 for the Odessa job number 230320 for the I-20 utility relocates. Award of contract for utility relocation verification inspection services in the amount of $198,060. Scope and fee attached for the monitoring of the construction of the project. And authorization for execution of a standard utility agreement with TxDOT for the reimbursement on the project. Approval of resolution 2023-R194 attached, which would authorize all those items.
Seth, let me ask you a question real quick. So we're transferring from the general fund, $6,361,000. Yeah, $3,361,986. Where does that leave us on the reserve funding for emergency days? Was it taking us from to?
I'd have to get back to you, Mayor, on the amount for that piece of it.
Okay.
But I will get that information to you guys.
I know that we're gonna get reimbursed, but I just want council to know where we are on the general fund for, what we have to have a reserve.
Yes, sir.
I know that we're not going below our requirement, what we have, but I wanna know if it's gonna affect days, just so we're aware of it.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to get that for you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So, council, any discussion?
Mr. Kerr, what's the turnaround time on those funds after completion for the payback?
TxDOT's pretty quick on returning these back. They'll generally return back to 90% very quickly. I would say within a month or two at the most, but then they do an audit and they'll return the remaining 10% upon completion of that. But I would say within 4 to 6 months, I think, would be my expectation. I'm not sure that TxDOT was able to make it tonight. We can pull up the budget real quickly if you need.
On what, whose budget, ours?
Yes, sir.
No,
If
Tom,
you're looking at reserves for the fund balance.
no, Tom, we can wait then, it's not critical, we're good.
Just an approximation on the time, and that's great.
Council, any other questions? Okay, so do I have a motion to consider contracts for awards appropriate of funds for I-20 utility relocate segment 2 for the amount of $6,361,986, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mata, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Swanner, all in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay, motion passes unanimously. We're gonna move on to item 22. Thank you, Seth. Consider appropriating 4.8 million in funding for participation in Yukon Road, Grandview Avenue, and full intersection reconstruction. Mr. Kirk?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is related to the intersection of Grandview and Yukon Road. Larry Lee with Lico Properties is developing the southwest corner, in which he is responsible to do some paving additions there and curb line work and such. And associated with that, I've spoken with the city manager, interim city manager, and I believe the council has an interest in going ahead and building that intersection to its full build out right now to help promote the complete development of that area and the long-term growth of the city. So in this, the construction estimate for the entire intersection is $4 million, just over $4 million, $4,013,986. Of that, the estimated responsibility for LECO would be $676,987.50. This would build the intersection itself to 7 lanes, traffic each direction. It will transition back to the existing roadways as they are right now, but that will be very beneficial for the entire intersection area. So we would need to have the city's portion of that, as well as some funds for the design of the project, and then the city will reimburse LECO Properties as they proceed with the construction. It is proposed by resolution to approve $4 million from the 2019 certificates of obligation and $800,000 from the roadway area 1 impact fee funds that have been collected over the last 2 years. So there's that will appropriate enough money for us to have the design to be able to meet the obligations of the city, as well as some contingency funds. And so we would, if you approve this resolution, to show your intention to participate in the construction of that intersection, then we can follow up. I will come back to you with the design contract, and then we will proceed with LECO.
Seth, real quick, on the impact fees that are coming out, from what, we have three zones, right?
But we do have three roadway area zones, and then there's a impact fees for water and an impact fees for sewer as well.
Okay, so which zone is this money coming out of?
This is coming out of roadway area 1.
Roadway area, okay. And so, Seth, just for the clarification, because what's gonna happen is that we're gonna wind up getting a response that the city of Odessa is just pushing one segment of the community. So on the impact fees that are paid by the different zones that encompass north, east, west, and south, the city's divided in 3 pots. So monies from the other zones cannot be invested, and they cannot overlay, can't pollinate to another zone, meaning so of the 3 zones, the money that's collected in that zone can only be invested in that zone. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to clarify that, but put that in the record, because, you know, we're constantly hearing, we're just pushing one section. No, this impact fees, you know, even though there's still some consultation about it, it's still equitable, because it's only reinvestment where it's collected.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the $4 million is coming from monies left over from 2019 that the city's already paying debt on.
Yes, for the public works allocation of those funds.
Okay. Those are my questions. Council, you have any questions on this? Okay. Nope. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Sorry, I keep forgetting you got that bad knee.
I got used to it.
So item 22, council, consider a motion to approve the appropriating 4.8 million in funding to participate in the Yukon Grandview full intersection reconstruction.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Thompson. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Mata. All in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all very much.
We're gonna move on to miscellaneous. Item 23, final presentation discussion and recommendation of the Odessa Fire Rescue Hazing Association. Mr. Sheen.
Tommy, before you get started, how do I know you? Who introduced me to you?
Natasha Brooks.
Okay. So that's the reason I know you.
Yes.
Okay.
May I approach?
Yes, go ahead.
I brought reports for everybody.
No, we'll just have staff, get one.
All right. Council, Mayor, thank you for your time. Last time that we spoke, I delivered a report about the hazing that occurred in the OFR. We've already been through that, and so this report actually is to provide you with some additional findings that were recovered along this process. I talked to tons of people, as you all know. And one of the things that I wanted to point out to the council, okay, is, and this, the first page of this report and the first 2 or 3 pages of the report are basically an outline of each one of the witnesses and their experience, both with the city and with OFR when they first were employed, okay, as far as the protocols that they went through and the training that they received with respect to incidences and reporting incidences and whatnot, okay? And the reason that I highlight this amongst the captains and the cadets is as you go through this, the first part that I highlight is the OFR orientation. And you see we started with Chief Joey White. In 1992, it was still the Odessa Fire Department at that point. They had a rookie school. And the rookies were put together with supervisors, and they were held to an account. Various city departments would give presentations from time to time. They would get them filled in, and they had on-the-job training as well as some benchmarks they had to make. Okay, that's when he first started as a brand new firefighter out of school. And I'm not going to belabor the point, but as you go down the timeline, in 2003, Chief Chavez did not have an orientation, but he had already had his EMT certification. He had supervised on-the-job training, expected to meet his performance benchmarks, and competency testing on regular intervals. Then you move down to 2003, Captain NORAD that we've talked about before. He had the on-job supervised training, was expected to meet his performance benchmarks and competency testing at regular intervals. Well, then when we start going into Captain Moody, by this time it's a 4-day-long orientation. Okay, where these new hires are coming in and they're getting a 4-day sit-down video, taught about chain of command, taught about some of the things they're going to do in the fire department. As you get down to our cadets, this cadet program was founded in 2010, 2011. As you get down to our cadets, you will see that in 2021, that class, there were 3 of them in that class that I interviewed, they received a standard operating guideline and a sit-down 1-day meeting to learn policies and guidelines. Had a slideshow. Basically covered how to report incidents and complaints. 2 of the cadets don't recall having a presentation, don't recall a presentation about HR, don't recall a presentation about any kind of HR concerns or complaints that they may have had throughout their training. Then when the next class comes through, April 22, we had 1 cadet from that series. He denies having, even receiving a standard operating guideline handbook, handouts, denies being shown any training videos, denies receiving any information on how and where to file a complaint. Once in a while, he would get a nodule from Captain NORAD for training purposes, but that was it. And then by June 2022, that class, all of them that we interviewed denied receiving a standard operating guideline handbook. Orientation lasted about an hour and a half. general overview topics, scheduling issues, and daily duties that they were going to do, which we discussed last time, which was basically janitorial, wash the trucks, do this, that, and the other. The reason I provide this is for the last 20 to 25 years, the training that these kids are getting as they come into the fire department has gone to almost zilch. Okay? And this is just a small sample. I'm not speaking for all departments of Odessa. I'm not speaking for all firefighters. The ones that I interviewed in the process of this investigation, this was their objective story as to what happened when they came on in OFR. The next timeline that you're going to see is the same thing, except what they experienced from the city of Odessa. Okay? They all testified that they usually had a fire training, and then they also had a Odessa orientation. And if you start out with Joey White, there was a 2-hour presentation covering various topics, including rules and regulations. He was here at the city hall, met the city manager, the mayor, remembers the HR department interacting with him, remembers the procedures for complaints being explained to him, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to belabor it, but you get where I'm coming from. Then Chief Chavez, there was an all-day orientation, did the same thing essentially as what Chief White had explained, but then they were taken on a bus tour to multiple departments throughout the city. He recalls that getting a city handbook measuring a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick, which included key contact information for HR and other vital information. Then we go to Captain Norad. He doesn't recall a bunch of stuff, but that's not all that relevant. Captain Chavez does. Going down to Captain Moody. He received a city handbook and provided us with a copy. He does not recall whether he received instruction on the HR grievance process or reporting in the orientation. It was a few hours here at City Hall. Then he was released. Captain Yoakum attended a general assembly regarding city policies and procedures. Less than a day. Reporting incidents or grievances with co-workers to HR was not covered. He remembers receiving a handbook. Then you get into the cadets, okay, December 2021. The cadets were hired in 2021, reported they went to a general meeting here at City of Odessa. 2 reported they were handed a city handbook. 1 denies receiving a city handbook. 2 reported that HR spoke with them briefly, but they did not receive instruction on safety protocols, reporting incidents, or reporting problems or grievances with the coworkers. 1 reports he remembers brief instruction on how to file an anonymous complaint, okay. 2022, 1 cadet was interviewed. He reports the City of Odessa orientation was an informal meeting. He was provided with the City of Odessa handbook. He did not receive instruction on safety protocols, reporting incidences, or reporting problems or grievances with his coworkers. June 22 class, 3 cadets were interviewed. 10 to 15-minute orientation regarding general city employee or information. 2 reports receiving a folder, not even a handbook anymore. If you recall earlier on, they were given a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch handbook. Now it's a folder primarily consisting of their insurance information and some other stuff that, just general employment things. Cadets were not given clear guidance on safety protocols, grievance process, weren't introduced to HR or anything that they might need if they had a problem on the work site. And 1 in particular complained that he received a great deal of paperwork that was, quote, not very well gone over, end quote. Okay? Again, the pattern persists. Going back from the 90s when we interviewed, Chief White and his experience when he started all the way to these cadets. It's been a precipitous drop of orientation and training for these cadets in the fire department over time. Less and less is provided for them as far as resources to help them do their job if they run into a situation such as they faced here with this bear crawl incident that we talked about today. Last time we were here, okay? Now, why do I point this out? For obvious reasons, right? We don't want our new hires here in the city of Odessa, and I can't speak for other departments. I'm just speaking to the fire department. We don't want our new cadets that are coming in and our new hires from the academy coming in and just being handed a 5 or 10 page piece of paper and said, get after it. These guys, if you recall, none of them knew what to do when this incident happened. They didn't know that they had the ability to talk to HR. They didn't know that they could who to report to, because the guys that had been in part of this were their superiors. They had always been told chain of command afterwards. And so I think that this culture that has kind of pervaded over the last couple or 3 decades has been I'm sorry, guys, manufactured a little bit by the city of Odessa. I mean, that's just all I can tell you. Less and less provided, less and less guidance provided on what to do, and we end up with a situation where the environment exists to where these young cadets don't know what to do when they are put in harm's way by their superiors. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about, and it also leads, and this is the point that I make, this is a particular concern in this instance, as not a single cadet, a captain, a chief reported this series of incidences, meaning the bear crawl, to the HR department or any other department within the city. Now, this is particularly important because we're about to get into why it's important. This city has a safety policy. It's number 3.300 dated February 7th, 2002, okay? An impertinent part, and you can find this on the top of page 5, it says, each accident involving any employee or property of the city or occurring on the premises owned, leased, controlled, or used by the city must be investigated by the safety program coordinator and the full report submitted to the department or division director and the director of risk management. I added the emphasis. That's the rule. That wasn't done here at all. In fact, when we talked to the HR director, Charles Hirsch, he informed us that he had a talk with Chief Alvarez, where Chief Alvarez related to him he had not contacted the safety department, and that he was concerned that the safety committee would have been in line with, I'm sorry, let me back up. He didn't want to involve the safety committee because for fear of it was too administrative and the situation would not be taken seriously enough. That's what he was told, what our HR director was told by Chief Alvarez. And so even though there's a specific policy in place that says any employee, cadet, of the city of Odessa is injured on city property, fire station, it must be reported and it must be investigated by the safety crew. Nonetheless, we have a chief who does not do that. And I might add also an HR director who knew the chief's intentions were not to report it and nonetheless didn't report it to the safety committee either. So the safety committee, for as far as I can tell, in this investigation was never notified of this, when it was their express job to conduct an investigation as to accidents involving city employees on city premises. So, also, this I think you guys really need to take a look at some of these safety policies too. As I pointed out, these are dated February 7th, 2002. I mean, we're 21 years down the road. Even though this particular policy says something about investigating any accident, it doesn't give any employee direction on what they can do. So if they have an accident, it doesn't say the employee can contact the safety director. It doesn't say what they're supposed to do if their superior decides to not follow the protocol and the policy of the city. So I think some of these safety, I'm not here to tell you how to write them. I'm just saying I think they need to be reviewed and updated with an eye a little bit more towards the fact that these employees, at least on the two that I found, don't have access directly through the policy to activate these investigations or trigger these investigations. So that's one recommendation I would make is this safety policy in particular, I think it needs to be opened up, or there needs to be some sort of mechanism at y'all's, obviously discretion, to open that up to where if there is not a report of the accident, or if the accident is caused by a direct superior or somebody that they can't go talk to, that these employees can go to the safety director, and they know that they can go to the safety director. They've been counseled or taught that they could go to the safety director if that in fact is the case. Now, I made a big deal about the grievance policy and whether or not these people were told that they can make a grievance or not. I provided for your review on page 5 the grievance process as it currently exists, section number 7000, effective date February 7th, 2002. Okay? let me cut to the chase. This grievance procedure forced these cadets, if you look at it, if you read it, basically their remedy is to go to their direct supervisor. If they have a complaint with an oral complaint, well, what happens when the direct supervisor is the complaint? Okay, well then go to his supervisor. What if he's also part of the problem, right? And then your boss is out of town, which is what happened here, right? Chief Alvarez out of town, Chief Moya was involved, and Captain Norad was involved in some capacity. So direct supervisor involved, direct supervisor's involved, direct supervisor is out of town. Well, we already went through it earlier. They weren't taught that they even had HR as a remedy, right? And in fact, under the current policy, they might be right, unfortunately, because the way it is written, if they have a complaint, they go to their direct supervisor. He has 5 days to act. If he doesn't act, then they can file a written complaint with that guy's supervisor and push it to the next guy, right? And if that doesn't work, then he can push it to the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy, until somewhere down the line, the city manager hopefully sees it. Maybe, maybe not. And so that's their remedy under the grievance policy. With the exception, with a couple of exceptions, if the complaint or the grievance is sexual, racial, or physical violence in nature, then they can go directly to the HR director. Okay? If the city manager determines that it's a complex grievance, which is not defined anywhere in the policy, but in his discretion, he says it's a complex grievance, then he can ask for an investigation, right? But the way it's written right here, and here's the lawyer in me, I'm sorry, it says, under C, complex grievances, the city manager may decide that a full investigation is necessary to resolve a complaint, period. In those cases, the employee will file a grievance with the director of HR. How the heck does he know if it's a complex grievance if the grievance hasn't even been filed? See what I'm saying? I mean, so that doesn't make any sense. So, obviously, in that instance, if it's a complex grievance, then the city manager can open an investigation. That wasn't done here, as we well know. So, we talked to Mr. Hurst a little bit about this again, and he gave us some pretty critical insight into the HR side of things. I think one of the problems y'all have got here, in this guy's opinion, is based on the evidence. You've got an HR department that either by policy, by precedent, or by decision, or a mixture of the three, believes that their role is advisory only. Okay? And that they are there merely to answer questions and to be supportive, but not to conduct investigations unless they are expressly asked to do so by the city manager, and only if the city manager asks them, do they believe they're allowed to get involved? Which is contrary, and many of y'all have run businesses, and I've represented big companies around the Permian Basin for 17 years now and dealt with all kinds of safety departments and HR departments, and I'll tell you what, I know this isn't a company, it's a city, but the HR people, they will get in the middle of you if you're doing something wrong. It's their job to make sure the employees are following protocol and policies and procedures. If there's an incident, they investigate it. If it's a safety incident, they get the safety team involved. That's not happening here. It's not happening. And so I think that one of the things the city needs to look at is seriously looking at how to redefine and empower the HR department to be an overarching department, independent and free from just sitting on the sidelines, because that's what they're doing. And that's what I've heard from Mr. Hirsch, is that he characterizes the HR department function as merely a subject matter expert on what can and cannot be done by the departments, instead of engaging in active investigations or getting referred anything. He believes, and I tend to agree with him, that because HR is not overarching and because these employees aren't being told, you can go to HR if you have a problem, and then the policy says you can't go to HR if you have a problem unless there's a circumstance. These departments, and I can only speak to the fire department, but Mr. Hirsch says it's more than just the fire department. They're operating in silos. So the investigation is totally run inside. They don't have any obligation under the current policies to report to HR what's going on. Now, they have these meetings once in a while, and in this case, if you recall from the first report, Chief Alvarez submitted his proposed punishment for these guys to HR, to Mr. Hirsch and to a legal representative from the legal department, and both of them said, no, that's bogus, that isn't any good, and he still went ahead and did it. Well, because there's not any review. It's not subject to review. The way it's currently set up, it goes all the way to the department head. The department head has the say unless the city manager yanks it away from him. And the city manager didn't yank this away from him. So the HR, as it currently sits, like I said, partly by policy, part by belief or whatever reason, didn't believe they had the power to come in and review that or change that or look at that and see if it was in compliance with the policies and procedures of the city when it comes to investigations. So, so it basically makes the Human Resources Department and the city manager's office the court of last resort. So, unless a grievance involves sexual, racial, or physical violence, this meaning the current policy, or the city manager deems a grievance a complex grievance, then it basically lays at the hand of the director of the department, who, I don't know, I haven't done a ton of investigation as to the qualifications for the head of the various departments and whether they're required to have HR training or any kind of safety training or anything like that. But I'm just saying that the HR department that y'all are paying for and the safety department that you are paying for and the city is paying for are not being engaged in situations like this. And it promotes a situation also where department heads can inject their subjective bias to objective facts. Okay? So if, for example, your fellow captain that's been serving with you for 20 years is the one that's accused against a little cadet, then you can assert your bias towards the captain, and then you can just punish that guy for a few days with paid leave, for example. Okay? So I think these policies really need some updating. They really do. Let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to cover. So based on the evidence gathered in this investigation, we are of the opinion that the independent operation of the OFR without the involvement or assistance of the city manager, human resources, and safety departments contributed to the environment where, number one, the cadets were not properly supervised and trained on a daily basis. Number two, the cadets were not trained on or aware of how the formal grievance process worked or the safety processes. Number three, the cadets were remiss to report the incident to anyone for fear of retribution. Number four, neither Human Resources nor the Safety Department were notified immediately or performed an investigation. Number five, OFR conducted an internal investigation. Number six, OFR crafted punishments objected to by the legal department and HR department. And seven, OFR completely disregarded the objections, handed out punishment internally. So I think the environment of not having cross-department cooperation in major investigations allows for a circumstance where that can all be accomplished. And in my investigation, it was. So, some of I didn't provide these, and I can if the council would like it. There were some suggestions by the cadets and by some of the people that I interviewed on how to make things better. But I will tell you, the principal one for the cadets were to have a structured curriculum and have regular hours and basically be, messed with at all. right? For the HR side of things, Mr. Hirsch seemed to think that there needed to be the possibility of an independent review board of some sort where HR and safety and maybe one of the chiefs or whatever, where it took it out and made it objective if there was a major incident such as this. It appears that that policy might already be there. I think from what I can tell, probably a serious look at HR and what they're doing and empowering them to be more active and proactive and not being at the kind of on a chain for the city manager and city manager's office would probably go a long way to making sure that these investigations are run in an objective manner and that are run a little bit more uniformly across departments as well. So that's what I have for you folks. So thank you for your time.
I've got a question here because this is standing out to me real quick.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you can answer this.
Yeah.
Let me make this statement. So in discussion, which is page 7, page 7 of 9, and page 8. Quote, in short, although Mr. Hurst seemed to indicate that the employees are free to submit grievances to the human resource. The written policy in place for the city directs an employee to file such written complaint with their direct supervisor, which you indicated. And in this one, for forwarding to the HR. But in this incident, you had the director and then the director's director. And then the director of the director of the director was out of town.
And then to HR, once it got to the top.
And then forwarded to HR, unless somehow such written complaint with a direct supervisor for forwarding to HR, which didn't happen.
Right.
Unless somehow a grievance is deemed complex grievance by the city manager. As you can see, no written criteria here was what was constitute the complex grievance, was basically was provided, correct?
Yes.
What we do know is that Mr. Hurst and Michael Mario's awareness of the bear call incident involving the injuries requiring bandages to Odessa Fire Rescue cadets caused by the Odessa Fire Rescue personnel in August of 2022 appears to have been insufficient to qualify as a complex grievance. So the injuries in itself, basically you're saying, wasn't complex enough.
What I'm saying there is, even in light of that knowledge by the HR director and the city manager, because there's the city manager testified that he had a call with the chief who said, I think I've got a problem with my safety guys. I've got guys in bandages, so he was aware of an accident. And then he testified later to me that he went and talked to Mr. Marrero right after that to relay this stuff. So I'm saying that information that was made, granted subsequently afterwards, was not enough, I guess in Mr. Marrero's mind. In Mr. Marrero's mind to classify it as a complex grievance, because that's the only way that it would have been
gone forward. So basically, you conclude for the purpose of launching the investigation. Further, when the HR manager and city manager subsequently learned that Chief Ortega determined that the problems with the Odessa Fire Rescue at that time's training program, specifically training program, were far more persuasive than initially thought. Such additional information apparently still did not persuade the OFR at that point was dealing with a complex grievance. Thus, the investigation was opened by the city. Thus, no investigation was opened by the city or HR. So how did Chief Ortega communicate that there was more persuasive issues within the training program than initially thought? How was that communicated? Who was that communicated to?
My understanding is that was communicated by and through Chief Alvarez to the meeting that they had on a regular basis between the legal and the HR. I guess they have a regular teleconference meeting on Thursdays.
It's every couple of weeks.
Every couple of weeks, and it was related, I guess, through Chief Alvarez that the investigation that they were doing at that time was revealing that it was a bigger issue than they had initially anticipated. And like I said, that's hearsay upon hearsay. All I can do is report what's told to me, and that's what was told to me. But my point in making that statement is that the way that the city manager and HR could have taken a hold of this situation under the current under the current rules, is they either get it by referral, or the city manager can make a determination that it is a complex grievance, right? And then he can conduct an investigation and order the investigation of.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, Mayor, HR should have the ability to conduct an investigation if there's something of this nature. And as it currently sits, at least with the rules that we've been able to find in the city rules, not unless they're asked to. And usually, and mainly, not unless they're asked to, unless the city manager tells them to.
So there's a section right here that is based on the evidence gathered in this investigation that you conducted.
Yes, sir.
By speaking to the principles in hand. You are the opinion that the independent operation of the Odessa Fire Rescue, I believe at that time, without the involvement and assistance of the city manager, human resource and safety departments contributed to the environment where, one, cadets were not properly supervised, trained on a daily basis. Cadets were not trained on or aware of the formal grievance safety process, and the cadets remissed to report the incident to anyone for fear of retribution. Neither Human Resource nor the Safety Department notified immediate or performed an investigation. OFR conducted an internal investigation. OFR crafted the punishment objected to by the legal department and the HR department head, and the OFR completely disregarded the objections handed out internally. Okay. So it was your opinion that the entire operation roles of the Human Resource Department and the safety departments need to be administratively addressed and to empower the departments to function as an oversight rather than an advisory capacity. Former, the city should consider procedure for the direct review appeal of the director's determination regarding the investigation, finding the punishment in conjunction with this review and grievance policy. And so.
It needs to be amended. Yeah, and so, like I said, he did happen on a bigger problem. It's almost systemic within the fire department. They're not trained that they have these resources available, meaning the new hires and the new cadets aren't trained that they have these resources available to them. It's pounded down their throat that it's chain of command, chain of command, chain of command. And then, for all intents and purposes, HR and the safety department aren't in the fire department on a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month basis. And so they aren't trained. They're not getting training on how to report these things, and then something like this happens, and they don't know what to do.
So basically, it was just accumulation of decades of it progressively deteriorating until it got to a point where it imploded, and that's what we witnessed.
Yes.
Okay. And putting it on in a nutshell. This was just something that was brewing that happened way before anybody ever even got here.
Right.
It's a combination of so many things. It just finally came to a crossroads.
So, I mean, again, those things that we've talked about, but obviously, I hope that the council will consider also looking at what new hires are being handed and what orientations that they're being provided, and make sure that they know that they have resources available to them if they get in a situation such as this, where they don't feel like their only remedy is to go to a direct supervisor who may be the problem.
Okay. Council, do we have any other questions? Mr. Sheen, I thank you for your time and this report. You're welcome. You did a real good job.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 24, appointments of boards. City Secretary Mulder?
No, sir.
Okay. Seeing that there is no more business before the city council, I have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember
So
Warner,
moved.
second by Councilmember Haney.
So
All in
be it.
favor indicating by saying aye. All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned. Be careful going home.
I am going, I want to know where we are.